Don Marie set it up, so I'm dummy proof,
There you go. As long as you get somebody that knows what they're doing,
right?
right?
Oh, and the camera's working,
Mm-hmm.
so we're gonna stop the video, we're gonna mute the camera.
Cool.
Hello. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jeff.
Great. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I
Good.
bet.
Hi, Jeff. Can you hear us now?
Unmute myself. You got it?
We are muted. We are unmuted. Well,
I
why
can
is-
hear you guys.
Yeah. And Joe is here as well, and Courtney. So we have quorum.
Okay,
And then just so everybody knows, there's materials down the table, and Danielle and Jeff, I'll email them to you right now. Because Danielle submitted some,
I did mine late.
yeah. I'm gonna have to send them to you afterwards because of the Google.
It's great for you.
It'll just be too distracting with the computer.
It is.
before we get going, I just want to recognize the work that's been done at the former driving site. Good quarterback you have.
Yeah, well, it's good having a planner who's also had an engineer.
Exactly,
It's
exactly,
a twofer,
exactly.
We got a
It's-
twofer with Kathy.
but we also do have engineers and,
I know.
yeah.
So should I acknowledge myself or my presence here? Are you gonna go around and do introductions?
We'll go around to introductions, but if you wanna,
Yeah, I just think for Jeff and others that are joining in, I'm Mark Forrest. I'm on the Board of Selectmen and we just wrapped up an Affordable Housing Trust meeting, so I'm doing a double header today.
But do you want to open the meeting?
yes, we'll open the meeting and turn it over to Peter. Hi, Courtney. To read the,
This is to formally advise the required MGL Chapter 1825 pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on June 16th, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The Yarmouth Community Economic Development Committee will hold a public meeting. Lastly there. Tuesday, August 13th, 2024 at 5 p.m. at the Town Hall offices at 1146 Route 28 South Yarmouth.
great. So we go around the room for introductions.
Danielle Newcomb.
Pete,
Peter Slovak.
Courtney,
Courtney Butler, thanks for joining us, Mark.
and Steve O'Neill. All right. I noticed we have a couple of items right up on top here, but on the committee reorganization, Kathy, if you just hold on for a second. I talked with Joe Manning today. He's not here. He's not available to meet today, but he would like to hold off Courtney until the next meeting, if that's okay with everyone, to talk about the change on the committee. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, good. All right, take care of item number 2. Item number 1 then, LCP interview, Kathy Williams, town planner.
Hello.
Extraordinaire, extraordinaire.
Everybody. I just want to introduce Jeff Bagg. He's working with BSC Group, who's our consultant, who's helping us update the LCP. Joanne Crowley, who's our planning board chair, was also going to be attending. She's running a little bit late, but she will be coming. And I just want to thank you all for meeting with us. The planning board's really needs input from a lot of different people to make this happen. It's not a solo gig, so we really appreciate the effort that you have all put in your comments in writing is very much appreciated. As you know, that the planning board started this planning process with the 2021 vision plan, where we really identified the community vision for Yarmouth as being a great place to live, work, play, and learn. And then we identified a bunch of different goals and objectives and things we wanted to preserve, promote, and provide for in the town to meet that particular community vision. So what we're trying to do now is expand upon the original goals and objectives and actually identify action items and strategies that we can implement to make this vision come to fruition, things over the next 10 plus years that we would be looking at. So the goal, the interview questions that we submitted to you guys were really, we took some of the goals and objectives from the vision plan and really highlighted the ones that were kind of related to you guys. Obviously, a lot of it was to do with the economy, but we also threw in a couple with regard to housing, community character, and recreation and entertainment. And then trying to then tailor some specific interview questions for CEDC, but also leaving it open-ended because you guys are, important members of our community. You get out and about, you may want to have input on topics beyond just the typical CED comments. So I don't know if Jeff had anything further he wanted to add before we get into the interview questions, or?
No, I think that was a great introduction. I'll just say hello. We had a kickoff meeting back in April And we started some of the some basic analysis right before that. So we're still sort of almost midway. We're sort of at the beginning to midway through assessing existing conditions. We're going through a lot of the plans and studies that the town has. And we're preparing with Kathy's help to do a community event September 26th, where we'll bring in members of the public to the senior center and kind of reintroduce them to the topic, make sure that people know that the town is talking about a comprehensive plan. And we'll start to sort of get affirmation of the goals and actions that were identified in that vision plan. And then just looking at some of the documents that a couple of the responses that you guys have provided so far, we might start to put out a few action items or strategies at that meeting to help test the water, to get people oriented towards that type of thinking. And then in January, we will have a much more sort of robust, sort of facilitated community meeting where we have people looking at specific action items and really discussing the merits and the pros and cons and the costs of certain things. And all of those exercises will help us produce your plan that will have sort of the summary of really key projects that the town has going now, the key plans and studies, and then it'll be this action plan, and it'll be a long list of action items that the town will need to really spread out over a period of a decade or more to accomplish. But I'm here to listen tonight, and then working with Kathy, we're going to piece it all together and provide the town with a comprehensive plan in the spring and summer, and then it'll get reviewed and approved, and then reviewed by the Cape Cod Commission. So we have a kind of a long-term project here with the town of Yarmouth. So happy to be here. Thank you.
I don't know if you wanted to pull up just the interview questions that I'll be looking at them the same time. And I don't know for people who are here, whether they want to kind of comment on their written responses. So it's kind of talk. Sometimes it's nice when someone says one thing, someone else can chime in, or maybe they can expand upon that idea, and they can kind of have more of a casual conversation about things. So, so I think one of the first questions that we were looking for is kind of what are the impediments to increasing economic development? And then the countertone to that, what actions can we take in the next 5 to 10 plus years to rectify them and provide a clear path for economic growth?
Yeah, and just to chime in, there's, for the committee members, Mark,
Mhm.
there's hard copies here of the responses that we did receive
Oh,
from
good.
some of the committee members.
And you just want another vision plan,
Great.
vision plans.
Thank you.
I think you want to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So I guess it's like, maybe like we can kind of go through, maybe Steve can start. And
Sure.
kind of his ideas, and then we can go through the written comments, and then I know Peter might have some additional comments to add as well.
I think, well, let me start by saying, I appreciate what you just said about this being 5 to 10 year plans. A lot of my comments recognize that, but I think a lot of my comments, I like what the consultant said too, from BSC, is to maybe take some of what we were suggesting and put those toward the public in a more timely fashion so they can react to them, because quite honestly, I think we're just talking about, coincidentally, Mark, that I don't think the town has the option of waiting, particularly with seasonal housing, 5 to 10 years. I think you're gonna lose a lot more businesses if we have to wait 5 to 10 years to come up with some goals and objectives and strategies to bring forth more housing. So with that said, I think the biggest thing that needs to be done is to streamline the permitting process. I've heard not once, twice, or 3 times, but many times that the process is too difficult to get to and too untimely to move through. People want, when they want to invest, they want a return on the investment in a more timely fashion. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen with the permitting process here. So I think too, that the town needs to invest in some grantsmanship. And what I mean by that is to put some money towards hiring some people that can actually go about and write grants in a more proactive manner. Some of that grants money, cost of putting that staff people on board can come from the grants that you get. but, to ask a person to write a number of grants for a specific project in addition to doing everything else that one does is an awful lot. It's a big burden to put on that person. So I would say to take a more positive stance from the Board of Selectmen to bring on more staff people, so we can write more grants. Let's see, I think that handles the first. The final thing was to create a one-stop shopping center. What I mean by that is let's take the, actually kind of worked out in this way a little bit, but let's take the, drive-in site. You had a person responsible for pulling all the people together to bring about that project from its inception to where it actually got, shovels in the ground. But that person had to bring about the ZBA, the planning board, this body here, and a number of other groups as well. That maybe be the model that should be looked at going forward for other type of development projects that you want to do on 28 as far as housing or economic development, is that someone in the town needs to be responsible for quarterbacking all the different boards, the ZBA, the permitting, the planning board, buildings, bring all those people in together in one room. And this is what we're gonna do. This is the project, explain what the project is, and everyone takes responsibility for their jurisdiction, but there's a person responsible to work with that specific developer or developer to get the project from A to Z in a more timely fashion. I think that'll pay a tremendous amount of dividends. Once you get something started like that, the business community is gonna react in a very positive fashion. And I recognize what you said a moment ago, Mark, as far as bringing the public, and that is a big aspect of that. And perhaps part of that one-stop shopping can be a component that deals directly with the public before things get too far afield, how the rumors and gossip stop before something even happens, is meeting with the public, meeting in a more timely fashion to get their input before something starts, so that, once it does come to fruition, people are behind it and they can move it forward in a more timely fashion. So,
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
When people are commenting about the permitting process, because going through the Riverwalk Park permitting, my problem or the timely part for me was all the state permits. Because we had to go through the
right,
through the
right.
environmental notification, we had to do an environmental impact report. And because we were in an environmental justice area, we also had to do a DRI through the Cape Cod Commission. And then you also had to go through Mass DEP and get a Chapter 91 license. You had to get a water quality license. You had to talk with CZM. So there was all of these things, and it just seemed like the same project got reviewed over and over and over again from the state level. And that's where it actually took a long time.
Mhm.
The local permitting, maybe because I was more knowledgeable of it,
Right.
went through very quickly. It was literally all of the state permitting that
Right.
took us the longest
Right.
time. And I think a lot of the permits that we implement here at the town, like from entertainment licenses to alcohol licenses, to building permits, are really state regulations. FEMA, all of that is state regulations that the town is required to take on and implement. So I guess getting a clear understanding of where, I understand there's some concerns with zoning and the local permitting, but are some of the really issues, because I know like when we had the business meeting with some of the business owners, the Captain Parkers was saying it took forever for them to get approval for their 170 seats for their expansion when they closed the patio. So I was kind of like maybe finding out what were those permits that took so long? I don't think it was the local ones. I think it was more the state. So maybe we get a better idea of what's snagging people up would be helpful.
Yeah, and maybe what I was just talking about as far as occurring locally, someone can go to the state and say, look, you've got a number of, because we're a coastal community. You just raised a very good point. Because you're a coastal community, there are a lot more processes that you have to go through. And they're very, very laborious and taxing. So perhaps something at the state level that could be discussed with people at the local, at the state jurisdictions that are responsible for these projects could be done too, to move it along in a more timely fashion. But that's a very good point. That, there was an issue, take the golf course at Bass River. It's been, if I hear it once, I've heard it every time I play over there. Well, there's gonna be a bridge here going across the river, and this process started about 20 years ago. Of course, you talk to your guys, and it's not 20 years, but the point being taken is it takes an awful long time. They get through the environmental process for a simple project is putting a bridge over that little water, that body of water comes into the course. And I've gone through the process with reading what the material is, and it's just the state jurisdiction that takes an awful long time in that, so. People don't understand that, they do not understand it. And to your point about the owners, rallying against seasonal housing, if they understood the process that the state puts in play and the local jurisdiction puts in play, it's really to protect them as much as in the environment. So, you're not doing something that's gonna be underground or, something that's gonna be nefarious. It's really something that we need to have. The business community is asking for it. You want to go out and enjoy your meals, but you won't be able to do that if you don't have a business because they can't hire the help. There's processes in play that require us to go forward, that they need to understand that ultimately they'll be protected as much as that new business. So I don't want to take the meeting over here, but those are my
I'm just
points.
trying to, like, maybe these are some of the things that maybe we need to try and clarify that, maybe reach out to the business community to find out what that is. And even with seasonal employee housing, we have implemented some changes allowing seasonal employee housing at motels and hotels. And there's a couple that have.
Understood.
So what's the gap now?
Yeah.
Maybe get a better understanding of what the gap is so that we know what type of additional zoning might we need to do in order to cover that. I'm not clear on what the gap is anymore. I've heard that we're close with what we have now, but maybe we're not. So that might be another good thing to
Right.
get a better handle on.
But on that staffing part, everything on this list goes through building department on the local level. I know you mentioned state level, which is Mark and one other employee.
Right.
When
Right.
he has to be overwhelmed. We know he's overwhelmed
right.
at certain times, especially we went through the UAD process last year. He was at every meeting.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that involved with him. And I mean, that department probably could use more help if we're able to achieve a lot of what we want to achieve.
Yeah, the building commissioner is kind of like the person, the arbiter of the zoning bylaw with regard to, like, when someone comes in, what's your use? Where are you in the bylaw? What relief do you need? Hi, Joanne.
Hi, sorry I'm late. Just slow on the course today,
Sure.
very slow.
5 hours yesterday.
Yeah, 5 today.
So you're right, there are some limited, that's a big role. He meets a lot of times, he'll be the first face with developers, because they want to know what their use is and where they fit in the zoning bylaw. So obviously, we have a lot of meetings together, but a lot of it does involve Mark.
Right.
He
Right.
gets caught. He
Right.
does have, he has a deputy commissioner and then he has 2 inspectors, building inspectors in addition to plumbing inspectors. So he has some additional staff. But yeah, that's a big role. It's a big role. It should be a big role in any community. I
It
think
is.
There's a lot on the shoulders of the commissioner, for
Yep.
sure.
Could I add one thing? Sorry, I tried to raise my hand. I think this is a good discussion, and I think it makes sense in its entirety. What we see frequently is as we go, and we met. So Kathy mentioned we met with business owners, not all of them, but sort of a select, a representative selection of business owners. And I think the thing that as a group we probably want to be careful of, or at least mindful, is the things that are going to be under the local control and things that Yarmouth can do to change or streamline or add staff. And I think trying to be honest and clear with especially business or property owners that here are the things that we can fix or adjust over time, but things like MIPA or Mass DEP regulations, I think those are big hurdles for property and business owners, but the ability for the town to change those is going to be much harder. And because I just think, like, as you go to business owners and they hear, they're going to tell you the constraints, you just want to be careful that they go into buckets of things that Yarmouth can work on in-house and get passed through town meeting. And then there are these other things that are going to fall on other agencies. The transportation is another big one. So it's just the other example of like Mass DOT, it's hard to change the way Mass DOT does things. And I think people I think being honest about that in kind of like this master plan approach will be something that we will work on, and you'll see drafts. But I think that's just going to be important because we'll ask people what the issues are, but if they're all state agency problems, we as a group will probably have less ability to control that.
Understood. One other thing I wanted to ask, is there a process that's written down? If a developer comes in the door, so I want to build 50 units of housing on 28, is there something written down, which the local steps are?
There's the permitting guide, which does give you a general idea of some things. And I think the key thing is it gives you a listing of the key staff that you would want to be talking
Yeah.
to. We just had someone come in and we had a meeting, Mark, myself, him and his attorney, about doing some development, where it was a mixed use development or a housing development that they were interested in. Because they were in a floodplain and next to the river, we brought in Brittany Rienzo, excuse me, the conservation administrator, so that she could outline some of the restrictions to that. So having that conversation, he kind of knew where he needed to head from there. And it was just literally before they had to put anything pen to paper. And we have a lot of those meetings, and a lot of those meetings can turn into nothing, or they can turn into some really important.
taking the next step.
You have to always assume that every one of those meetings could result in a project.
Yep.
Prepare for it, present, and provide, documentation, provided the FEMA flood map, all these different types of information for them so that they would have that available to help make their decision.
Good, thank you.
I don't know if you want to go around and.
My biggest one too is housing, that we just, majority of, at this point, Cape workers are coming from off Cape, and that's gonna be a problem. For seasonal and for year round. But I also had said, for economic development, that I think trying to create some form of downtown area on 28, like, there's a reason that Plymouth and Falmouth and Hyannis have these big destination areas that are really good for business. And with us putting in the drive-in site, I think it creates an opportunity that around there of trying to make it a destination area where people can walk around and enjoy, could be a really good economic. I think without something like that, there's only so much we can do on 28.
We do have the Village Center Overlay District, which was the intent was to create villages along Route 28, but it's an optional overlay district, meaning people, when they develop, they don't have to use that. But there was a lot of incentives in order to allow people to do that. It was the high density residential development, 16 units or 20 units per acre, depending, and then including mixed use, so you would have the commercial in that. And we really haven't seen a significant number of people taking advantage of that. There's a lot of other impediments to development. I think the Cape Cod Commission and their DRI process is one of them. Just the cost, just the sheer cost, it shocks me of, how much it costs to do those types of things, and still trying to, even though we allow our higher density, making it all fit on some of our oddly shaped and narrow lots makes that somewhat a little bit more difficult as well. We don't have a lot of really large, except for maybe Bass River Sports World, those really large parcels that could really have a nice development. And then unfortunately, there's a large swath of the Village Center Overlay District, which really got mapped into the flood zone during the 2014. We did the zoning in 2012, so in 2014. So there's a lot of that really impacts your ability to redevelop, and certainly to redevelop with that Main Street feel, because you got to elevate. So maybe that's not the right place for it. Maybe taking all of that into consideration, maybe we pick a different spot, look at zoning somewhere else to try to create that village center.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
I had mentioned to Kathy last week via email, the trailhead that we have out on Station Ave, because Orleans does a great job of that. Not only do they have a downtown, but they're
You're
bike
right.
path trailheads there. And
Yep,
if you look
yep.
at, what happens with the Chocolate Sparrow and everything everybody's there, they can park there, they can eat there, shop there.
Old
And
donut.
they do have, a unique downtown area, not unique, but they have a nice pocket. Where can we do that, And we have a
That's a good point.
trailhead ourselves
Yep,
and,
yep.
some available land up there, so, but it's in zone 2.
Yeah.
Whitney,
That's the other
Joe,
thing, yeah.
say anything?
Yeah, first, I think those are really great comments, so thank you all for those. We're sort of on the same path of attracting and maintaining year-round businesses as well as residents. and finding paths to seasonal workforce housing that do not detract from year-round housing opportunities. I know for me personally, I live down by all of the beaches in South Yarmouth, and I think my house is one of 4 on our road that's occupied year-round, and so it's something I very much look at and see and know that there are some seasonal, some people do rent them out seasonally, but I would love to be able to see a lot of those more open to year-round tenants or homeowners. But I think that some sort of downtown destination area of some sort is a very smart idea, and I think you're right on the money, Pete, with over by the trailhead there.
Thanks, Quinn. Joe Gibbs.
Good evening, good afternoon. I think one of my biggest ones goes back to the same thing as the housing is actual true workforce housing. I know that the town has invested a lot into the lower income housing, but I think the workforce housing, the people that actually make a decent wage but not quite a livable wage here, just really have very few options. And without having the workers, I don't really see the expansion. I mean, anytime you go over the bridge at say 8 o'clock in the morning, even in the middle of winter, it's backed up coming onto the Cape, and it's not summertime just because of all the workers that are coming here.
So the second question we were looking at is what actions or objectives do you think the town should pursue over the next 10 years to better support our current businesses and attract new businesses? We always say that we want to, retain, attract, and get new businesses, but how do we actually go about doing that?
If I could jump in here, I do have to leave at 6 o'clock because I'm at a conference for work, but I did just want to say that one thing I thought is just better information and working relationships and between the chamber and the town and residents, and also making Yarmouth a great place to work, and making people proud to own a business in Yarmouth. I don't really know how we accomplish that per se, but I know a lot of people are proud to have their businesses in many different towns and areas, and so making people very proud to own a business in Yarmouth. And also, if there's a way to host workshops to just educate local businesses on how to work with the town, either through their permitting needs, but more specifically with like applying for public bid processes so that they can have a better chance at winning bids to have, whether it's porta potty contracts or sidewalk construction, whatever it is. But I think that and my day job, Kathy, is with the Mass Municipal Association. So this is something that we think about a lot, is how do we get more local and small businesses to understand the public bid process and be able to apply and get those awards. So I think it'd be great if we could just do a little bit more outreach and work with the businesses in terms of what the town does and what it can do for them and vice versa.
I had just said that I think again it's going to come down to workers, and the reality is when we look at the schools right now, if you look at first graders, we're about 40% less overall on the Cape as compared to 8th graders. Yeah, schools we're worried. And so I think that looking at it and trying to create some more internships and things that work with the tech schools and 4Cs and the high schools and stuff, and really help the kids for those jobs that we need on Cape anyways, right? And just kind of trying to make it more of a whole town process to keep people on Cape because they have this good opportunity, or they can see themselves working on Cape and things like that.
Joe Gibbs.
Yeah, I think a couple things is, and Steve, you brought it up earlier, is just maybe like that coordinator. I think maybe it's like an ombudsman for the folks that are current business folks and or new business folks, is like that key person that they can talk to. And I think too is that we really need to support our current businesses. And I'll throw it out there is that the feedback from even the sewer project, when you close from town hall to the Pancake Man, but you're working only on a tiny section in between that, that is detrimental to a lot of those businesses in that section. And we need to be, we need to figure out how to best support the businesses that we have now, and here's a project that's going to be affecting us for 5, 10, even more years. And that's just the one big one that's easy to come out at. But how do we make it better for the current businesses and not impede them? Like, I think that has been happening with that, at least in my opinion.
Thanks, Joe. Courtney? Pete, you want to? My 2 cents worth on this one was,
Oh, should we talk about Joe's comments?
go ahead, go, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't even think about it. Joe Manning provided some written comment.
Right.
Just so the group can, I don't know if they looked at it.
Yeah.
I hate to go back, but for the impediments to increasing economic development, you mentioned one major impediment to economic development in Yarmouth is restrictive zoning laws that limit opportunities for mixed-use development. Sounds like you
Yeah.
guys had talked about that
Yep.
already. Additionally, there's a lack of affordable housing and limited collaboration among key stakeholders. To address these issues, it is essential to adopt prudent rezoning policies that facilitate mixed-use developments and promote public-private partnerships for housing-centric redevelopment projects like Mattakees. The Mass Leads Act provides funding for infrastructure projects and initiatives aimed at enhancing workforce development, which can be leveraged to support Yarmouth's economic growth, streamlining permitting processes, and fostering collaboration with the Cape Cod Commission can overcome historic mistrust from off-Cape investors and facilitate faster project approvals. I do say that we did meet last week with a developer who was from off-Cape, and when I mentioned the Cape Cod Commission,
They just
they didn't know about it. They're like, oh, or they vaguely knew about it. So that obviously was an impediment. I don't know much about this Mass Leads Act. I don't know if that's something that you guys have discussed as a
Yeah,
committee.
that's the governor's economic development bill that is
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
like very slowly getting signed, I believe.
It's funding for infrastructure projects and initiatives aimed at enhancing workforce development. So again, this comes back to the grantsmanship that we were talking about earlier. That's from Joe Manning you're reading off, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
right.
think a lot of you guys had touched on
Similar
a
things.
lot of that.
Yeah.
But for his answer for number 2, about the actions and objectives to for the town to pursue to support current new businesses, he said, to support current businesses and attract new ones, Yarmouth should focus on promoting green economies which complement the existing hospitality sector. This involves encouraging sustainable businesses and environmental tourism, strengthening educational partnerships with local tech schools and community colleges, and help to develop a skilled vocational workforce, as we were mentioning, attracting businesses seeking qualified labor. And again, the Mass Leads Act supports workforce training and offers grants for innovation, which Yarmouth can utilize to foster business growth. Additionally, streamlining regulations, enhancing broadband infrastructure, and promoting regional partnerships can make Yarmouth a more attractive destination for businesses.
Right. And I would just add for tax breaks, like, or tax incentives like tax increment financing. I know we talked about that before here at this committee and also with the assistant town administrator. And I don't know if we've seen anything yet, but again, my comment earlier about 5 to 10 years out, the town doesn't have the opportunity, especially because part of the wastewater treatment project was built upon attracting new businesses. So to finance that. So I think it's important that we do our best to outreach as best as we can, especially because we have to compete with, or maybe that's the wrong word, but work our way through, any prospective developer has to work their way through the Cape Cod Commission, which is another impediment to this whole process of getting anything done. We need to have whatever we can available on the table right away. When someone comes in your door and knocks on your door and say, we want to do something here. Here's what we can do. By the way, you got to go through this process with the regional government, but also in the state.
We have a liaison to the commission, or does the town have a liaison?
I'm the DRI liaison, so when somebody has a development.
But we have a.
We have a
representative.
representative.
Would there be somebody that a developer could talk to, pick up the phone and call and get guidance, direction, or some?
I think on one of your lists, your to-do lists is to have a relationship with this person, Dennis Presbenzin. Is that how I pronounce it? Yeah, Dennis, you gotta get Dennis in here and to meet with you folks, so he can get kind of immersed in all of this. All right? And, I mean, this is what I'm doing. I wanna know what you folks are saying, what you're concerned about, what you're working on. And I periodically come into your meetings. He's definitely someone that needs to get immersed in this. And, inviting him to show up at a meeting, I think would be well worth it for both you folks and for him, and I'm sure he'd be receptive to it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we need to build, I'm at on the select board, I keep saying to my fellow selectmen, you gotta invite committee people, particularly folks on the Cape Cod Commission, anybody who represents Yarmouth on these county boards, they need to show up periodically to let us know what they're working on, what they're doing. And, we need to engage them, tell them what we need. All right, perfect example. I bet you that rep has not heard one complaint or one concern about the Cape Cod Commission from anybody in town.
Yeah.
Well, let's get them in here.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
On that, Kathy, we might want to make sure that he's invited to our planning board meeting when we go over the regional economic, the commission's regional economic development strategy. Unless he was planning to come already,
No.
we've invited, he probably
I know.
doesn't even know, said, yeah.
We want it so that when he shows up at those meetings, I mean, Jack McCormick was there for years. Jack was immersed himself in Yarmouth. I mean, he went to a lot of the select board meetings. He's gone to other meetings. He's been to the planning board meetings. He probably came to these meetings. I
He
mean,
was on this committee.
He was on this.
there you go.
Yeah.
Bingo. So he was immersed in it. So we've got to baptize and immerse the new guy. All right? So reel him in.
Yeah, when Jack was on this committee and I was on it at the same time, we would find out what's going on with the commission.
He would tell you.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It would be a regular update from him, so.
And when Jack was at the commission, he was not shy. All right, for a while, he was the chairman of the Cape Cod Commission, and he was never shy about letting people know what they needed to pay attention to, what they needed to work on. If there was an issue, he was quick to lay it right out there. So
He was a good advocate.
very good advocate for Yarmouth. And, as a county commissioner, he wouldn't be shy about bending my ear either.
Yeah.
All right, he wouldn't be shy about bending my ear as a select board member either. So, yeah, we gotta, you know what? Jack was the perfect template, the perfect example,
Yeah.
model for what we need, right? We need to find another, we should have cloned him before he passed, all right? But we need to somehow redo that. We gotta find somebody that can play that role.
Yeah, I'll certainly invite him to the meeting.
Yeah.
Just so that
Yeah.
Mark knows that, it's this Wednesday at 5:30, the planning board meeting, the commission's giving their presentation. If anybody-
Who is?
The commission's giving a presentation on their comprehensive economic.
Development strategy.
Oh,
Oh, that's great.
Meds.
Says,
Um,
Yeah.
and
Good.
CEDC
is invited
and
and-
also CEDC.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
So.
Well, one of the things, if you're talking about this, one of the things that I'm reading in here, I really want to emphasize that in part of our economic development planning and thinking is to really don't allow the heritage tourism piece to escape anything that you're working on, all right?
no,
Because it's a key. I can just say that my years working with Senator Paul Tsongas, my years with Congressman Studs, my years with Congressman Delahunt.
Yeah.
The communities that seem to be able to generate significant private investment, all right, and engagement in development were those that were very focused on heritage tourism. Now, I did a lot of work for the two congressmen in Quincy. Quincy has a master plan. They have a vision for economic development. They want to know what they want to do with their core business district. They have it all figured out. It's been blessed by the city council. They have a plan. They've had master developers assist them in it. But heritage tourism is the overarching sort of theme throughout it all, embracing the heritage of the Adamses, the Hancocks, all the people that helped make this country great. All right. And when you go there, there's always something new to see or to go to. And then one of the biggest projects they're working on right now is a presidential library and create a museum-like experience for kids. So we have so much rich history here. Some folks have heard me talk about this, but we have a lot here for people to come and do. And let's face it, our big drivers for the economy are tourism.
mhm.
So what segments of tourism do we want to attract? You want to get the folks that like to play golf, go to the beach, hang out with your kids, have fun things to do on Route 28, but you also can't escape the important rich heritage we have, the history we have, the culture that we have. It drives so much and it has huge opportunities for growth. So I made this a priority for the select board.
Mhm.
So I made it very clear. And when we set our goals and objectives the other day, we had a big workshop session. We got together and I told folks, we've got to stop dancing around this topic, but we got to make this front and center a key component of our overall tourism promotion, as well as our economic development strategy. We need, because we have so much rich history here.
Yeah.
So this was the kind of work that Paul Tsongas did when he was a congressman and then a senator.
Mhm.
I had the benefit of working closely with him and his staff on this stuff. And that's one of the reasons why he was so attracted to the work that I was doing in the manager's office in Provincetown. But Studs, Delahunt, they all embraced it. And they were able to get great things done for the communities that they represented. We got to get in this game because I think it helps add real character, it adds texture, it adds a whole different
Mhm.
dimension and breathes life into a lot of this. So I just encourage you to be thinking about this and weave this into the work and the thinking that you're doing as you go forward.
Well, we certainly will do that. We've had discussions on streamlining our process. The selection of tourism money. And you brought this to our attention at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, which we attended, and I know Courtney was very interested in this as this committee. I think what we'll do is add something into this process as we, solicit applications for this. What'd be helpful though is where do we start? I mean, is there already a plan in
Let's work
place?
on creating a plan. Let's create a working, let's get some people together to start flushing this out a little bit. Maybe we bring on a consultant. I know a lot of people that work on these types of initiatives. Let's bring someone in to help us sort this out. We have a lot of talented people in this town that can tell
Sure
us
do.
just about everything
Yeah,
about our history. So it's just a question of
Yeah.
mining it and putting it to work.
Yeah.
I had a meeting before I came here with Bob Kelly, because we're working on a project to sort of draw our attention to the anniversary of the American Revolution and Yarmouth's role in it, right? I mean, that's got huge opportunity written
Yeah.
all over it.
right.
But there are things that we have to unearth. We've got work to do to get ourselves set up for that. But at least it helps create a focus and a vision.
Right.
I honestly think Yarmouth has more, we have some incredible history. We have a lot of fascinating places for people to visit, but they don't know they exist. That's one of the reasons why they just drive right through here. All right, so yeah, I like the idea of capturing people in a downtown. I don't know how and where we're gonna be able to do that. I mean, maybe the Great Island development area. I mean, that's got that potential written all over it, really, when you think about it. And I would love to figure out a way to work with you folks where how do we incentivize the right kind of development there that creates a little bit of that? That should be a project unto itself. But I'll just stop right there. I just want you to know I made that a priority for our select board. I got everybody on board with it, and I told people that I'm just gonna be basically a pain in the ass on this, until we can get some real headway behind it. So I'm happy to work with you folks on that and help you find the money and the resources to get it going.
Thank you. Kathy?
So the third question, sorry, I talked a little bit about it. What recommendations does the CEDC have on ways to increase year-round and seasonal workforce housing?
Do you want to start off with Joe Gibbs this time? Joe?
Good question. I'm not honestly sure where to even start. Other than I think that pretty much everybody knows that it is an issue. The Airbnbs have kind of taken over a lot of the single family rentals, and there's more seasonal rentals. It seems like summer rentals, and then those houses go vacant for the winter. It seems like in a lot of cases. But I wish I had an awesome suggestion for that. I honestly don't know where to start. I don't know if it's building big facilities. I don't know if it's converting, old buildings or old hotels or even like the Mattakey School. I don't know if that's the answer. But I think we need to start somewhere. I mean, maybe look closer at what other folks are doing. I mean, I kind of feel that, the islands, I think I just seen like Nantucket, I think just posted a full-time housing person, like an employee that does nothing but work on finding housing. I'm not exactly sure if that's for town staff or whether that's for just year-round employees. I don't know if that's the answer or not. I wish I had an awesome suggestion, but I don't.
Thank you, Joe. Courtney?
Yeah, I think that there are actually a lot of towns on Cape Cod and nearby that are actually doing a really good job at this. I can think of Orleans in particular is doing a lot of work right now in terms of either buying up parcels or working heavily with redevelopment on properties and old buildings. I also think too that one of the big issues is that just the affordability of buying a home, and I think an area our Affordable Housing Trust could probably do a little bit better at maybe is looking into better first-time home buyer programs and buy down programs. Wellfleet has a really good example of this. I think it's like a 20-year forgivable loan if you stay in the home. I don't know the specifics, but I have the link to that. But there are better opportunities to be using some of this funding that we're getting from the state and the federal and our tax base to be able to help people afford a home, or at least, put more money towards the down payment and things like that. I know the prices just keep going up, but some of those programs to kind of help people get in the door would be really great. And I think just one of the overall themes I had in looking at this was that we do have a lot of people, towns, communities nearby and off Cape. I see it all the time in my job, different towns that are doing really great things and leading by example. And so I don't think that we necessarily need to reinvent the wheel on a lot of this. I think there's a lot of programs and examples that we can adapt to make it work for Yarmouth and our community.
Yeah, if you can provide any more information on that, Courtney, that would be great. We could do a little more research on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think, if there's a way to encourage these seasonal business owners, especially the large ones that we have in town, to kind of like, I'm sure they could afford to buy, a couple houses or an old hotel and turn that into seasonal workforce housing. There's a way to encourage them to do that. So again, like it doesn't detract from year-round availability, but also doesn't make so many rental happen either. I think there's a lot of good examples of seasonal employees on the Cape that do have housing provided for their employees. So.
Danielle?
I didn't have much else other than, we need more mixed use buildings, and I think people need to accept that it's probably also going to be more apartments and things, although that tends to make people upset.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't think we've done a lot. I think we haven't done anything in this way. The Gull Wing is now 120 units of senior housing, which didn't exist a year ago, 2 years ago. The Town and Country is now 100+ rooms of senior workforce housing, which didn't exist 2 years ago.
Not senior.
Yeah, well, maybe. Cavalier was 5 acres of commercial land, is now 69 affordable housing units. We have an ADU bylaw. We have a STR bylaw that still has a sunset clause in it in some way, shape, or form. So maybe limiting STR license in some way, because there are a lot of houses that are short-term rentals that fall within that $500,000 to $600,000 price range, which is now kind of the median price for Yarmouth. So it's not that Yarmouth, I mean, we've done a lot, maybe continuing to do what we can do. Find the right hotel, that's the right, opportunity to be more seasonal housing. I don't know that we, to Joe, I don't know we need to recreate anything, just continue to do what we're doing. And acknowledge we haven't done nothing.
Well,
I mean, we've done a lot.
Thank you.
You just hit the nail on the head, and I think we keep hearing about this. I know I have heard of it a lot, is the number. There is no number that's real hard firm on what the exact amount of seasonal housing is. I've heard 150 units are needed. I heard 930 units are needed, and everything in between. So I think we have to start someplace, and one place would be, okay, what is the exact need that we need to have? Here's a set of existing businesses that we have in the community. Here's the support that they need. here's a seasonal number of employees that they need to have. And this is the corresponding amount of housing that we need. I haven't seen that, you know, Shayma might have some updated information on that, but I think until we get that, I think Pete's right, we've done an awful lot. And that's gotta get out there somehow too. Is there a need? You know, is there still a need for seasonal housing? The other thing I would add, you know, instead of looking at if there's still a need for affordable housing in the community, I mean, seasonal housing in the community, Yarmouth. Is it just Yarmouth that needs to do that, or can we work with the communities around us? You know, I keep harping on the fact that we have, Mark said, we don't have a lot of buildable lots in the community here. Okay, if that's the case, what about the region around us? What about the towns around us? And then the question of transportation gets invoked, and that's all right, that's a good one. But the town of Yarmouth also, as well as all the other towns, I think, participate with the regional transportation authority up in Hyannis. That can be tapped. I think we pay some money to that as a town. We pay some money for that operation. That can be tapped as a way of providing transportation options if there's affordable housing or seasonal housing that's needed outside of the community of Yarmouth. So,
Steve, can I want to underscore what you said, your comments, number 3. Acquiring dilapidated buildings. We've had some practice at this, right?
mhm.
I think the question for us is, what more can we be doing on that? Because we do have a lot of blighted properties. So I would argue, you know, maybe a sort of more strategy sessions, more discussions internally with key town officials. I'd also bring the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce into that conversation because they told us they launched an initiative to help facilitate conversion of dilapidated properties, dilapidated motels into more viable properties. So they're working on something. So they could be a partner. In fact, we may want to invite them to come and camp out in Yarmouth and work with us, you know, as a partner. I think they see themselves playing a role in identifying developers, businesses, people with big pockets to help facilitate the right kind of development. So I would encourage you folks to just really stay focused on these recommendations related to dilapidated properties, blighted properties, building partnerships with others that might be interested, particularly in the development community that might be interested. They're going to be looking for us for a vision for our game plan. So that's incumbent on us for us to get our act together in terms of the areas that we want them to look at, places that we have incentives. So I would just underscore that and just add those other comments to that.
And what I was referencing there as far as acquiring, it was a more aggressive approach, almost like creating a development authority that go out and designate an area.
Think of the tool that you used before, the Affordable Housing Trust, right? Didn't we use the Affordable Housing Trust as a player? I'm on the Affordable Housing Trust. We've had these discussions about taking a more active role in getting out there.
Yeah.
I think it's worth having more because it can play that role. So there's no reason why we can't continue to keep doing that.
Yep.
Right? They played a key role with the Cavalier redevelopment, right, Kathy?
And Yarmouth Gardens as well.
Yeah.
Yes. The question becomes promoting the mixed use with the Affordable Housing Trust and where the pots of money are to buy the property.
Right.
But we use CPA funds, which is for affordable housing, and that's how we helped with the Cavalier in Yarmouth. So trying to mix some of the housing money with some other money so that we can have mixed use is the question mark.
Right, and this is the message that I brought to my fellow board members on the Housing Trust is that we gotta realize that on the 28 corridor, we need mixed use.
Right.
We need to find a
Yep.
way to, instead of just doing just housing,
Right.
we need to have a mix so that we have space on the commercial side.
Agree.
So we've put together some soft money to help facilitate at least some development proposals to emerge on that, all right?
Thank you.
And that's what Mary was in visiting
Mhm.
about, and the committee is each going to take a piece of Route 28 and try to put eyes on the street and pick some property.
Courtney,
Yeah, so I'm sorry I have to run in a little bit, guys. But I guess I just want to make like a one final wrap-up comment. Kathy, you have my paper comment, so I can come and meet anytime with you or with Jeff or whoever to, talk a little further about this. I'm gonna try and get to the other community meetings as I'm able to. But I think my final points, especially with regard to housing, is that looking at all levels of area median income, the numbers just do not add up correctly for our area. Unfortunately, it's a federal issue, but if we can allow up to 200% or more, that might do a little bit for people. I think looking at neighbors who are doing good work. I think, Mark, you're on the money with creating a working plan of some sort for tourism, economic development. And I think in conjunction with that, working more closely and better with the select board, town staff, the county and the chambers. And just, hopefully within the next year, we can have some sort of document that guides us and, not just the LCP, but maybe a tangential one to that, about how we want the community and the economy of Yarmouth to look going forward. So I'm sorry I have to run. Kathy, thank you and the planning board for all the good work you're doing. Jeff, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And I think we have a meeting next week, guys, so I will see you in person then, if not beforehand. So take care and have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. We kicked number 3 around pretty good, Kathy.
So what do you foresee as the most important capital projects over the next 5, 10, even 20 years? Obviously, I think wastewater will probably be most of ours, number one,
Right,
but I'm
right.
interested.
Yeah. South Yarmouth Fire Station replacement.
Oh,
Mhm. Danielle,
I had wastewater. I wasn't really sure after that.
Joe,
Doing for Joanne again.
I mean, definitely, wastewater is the biggest capital, but honestly, it'd probably be nice to look at what the list, what is on the list for the town folks for the next, decade or more. Looks like I'm sure there's some big ticket items that we might not even be aware of that are, coming down to use. I mean, the Mattakees School, I'm assuming is going to probably be, could potentially be a big capital item depending on what gets used for that. But probably just overall building maintenance of with the town buildings, I think in general is looking closely at some of the buildings. They're maybe haven't gotten as much love as what they should have over the years.
hey, Joe Manning said, wastewater, investment in broadband infrastructure is crucial to support remote work and attract tech savvy businesses. Enhancing recreational facilities and green spaces will improve the quality of life and make Yarmouth more attractive to residents and tourism. And I pretty much echoed what you all said. Wastewater was the big thing. And broadband, extending broadband internet, especially for the commercial corridor on 28 is a big thing. We've heard that quite a bit from the chamber, I know.
Well, broadband goes down. Fiber goes down Route 28. So is it the cost of connecting from the Open Cape to the individual? That's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think when people say broadband Route 28, they're like, well, it's there already. So I
But
think we
it-
need to be clear that we're concerned about the cost to connect.
Cost connecting it, is it, I'm looking for a word here. I know it's the power is there enough broadband
man.
width, I guess, yeah, capacity. Yeah.
I think Courtney had a bunch of great ones too. Wastewater, broadband, Mattakees redevelopment. Yarmouth capital maintenance plan, again, library facilities, and then educational facilities, the
Yep.
schools. I know Emmy Small has serious root problems. I think that Joe was mentioning that as well, the town building maintenance.
Could I add something? Because I missed the whole business conversation, which I can circle back on later. But with the capital improvements, I think one thing that we see, and I'm sure you see it too elsewhere, but coastal resiliency and some of the capital improvements that are going to be necessary to support the coastal areas is something that we're seeing. It's identified in a couple of the other town plans, and then it's not quite. I know it doesn't quite fall under the capital improvement process with the town budget, but something we would probably describe as human infrastructure. is probably something that, we have to wedge in somewhere in terms of
Yeah.
additional costs in the future. I mean, I think even just like the omnibudsman idea or
Mhm.
additional town hall staff support, the police department, the fire department, and DPW, have all kind of identified, more additional employee needs. So it's not a neat fit in the capital improvement, but it is something that we'll see kind of come through those other groups.
Just so you know, we are going to be having an interview with the capital budget committee as well, so we're going to get their insights.
Just an editorial comment while you're here, Mark. I know there's a couple of interested people on this committee that would like to get going on that Mattakey School project, but haven't heard a thing as far as submitting their names and getting some feedback.
No, I
so just-
understand. I think, well, part of the challenge has been Bill Scott's been sick. He's been
Oh.
out with, and he's been kind of the quarterback for this. This is a project that's gonna take a lot of
I know.
space and a lot of time and
Yep.
energy. You talk about Kathy and the work that she had to do with the drive and site committee. It's that level of
Yeah.
commitment and, he's been out. But he should be back soon. And hopefully we'll be able to get that going again.
All right. And my little pet peeve is make sure we do something on the, for the stage, for the, drive-in site. In the way everything else is done around it, Riverwalk
Yeah.
itself will be done. We need to get a stage set up at some point. Yeah, and
Being in the floodplain, we just need to like figure out
How that's gonna
how we
work.
make that work.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yep. Okay,
So, you know, we want to follow. What is your vision for redevelopment of the former Mattakey Middle School property, and how can redevelopment of this property be used as an economic driver for the town?
okay, Danielle?
I'm really not sure. What I had put down was, I think whatever it is, it should be mixed use. We have the area, we need to add the housing in. And my only other idea was that it's right by the extension to the rail trail. So if you tried to do something that would make people want to go all the way down, so they were into Yarmouth instead of starting in Dennis, could be helpful.
Shared use pathway along, you can still road,
Yeah.
connect to all of that, so we got at least the Buck Island and Sandy Pond. But then if we could get them all the way down Route 28 with the Mass DOT improvements, where they're gonna have a shared use pathway there too, all of that would be great.
Yeah.
Joe Manning suggested, creating mixed use. Community hub featuring housing, retail, professional and community spaces. Again, he's referring to the Mass Leads Act. The other thing I think we need to look at as soon as we can is to add some connection to the wastewater, right, to that site. I think
You
that's,
can't develop it
you
with.
can't go, exactly. Joe Gibbs? We already got him, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, I'm anxious to, I'm still there, can you hear me?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm interested to see what the Mattakey's Reuse Committee comes up with. I mean, I definitely would like to see some sort of mixed use, some sort of community center, at least for part of the building. I do believe that we lack that. And I believe the recreation folks have been using the gym and that part of it very successfully over the winter. So I'd like to see at least part of that and really see what options that we do have available and what the committee comes up with.
You want to mention Courtney's comments?
Yes.
She said-
With you, Pete.
She said, look at the 204 Cultural Arts Municipal Building in Harwich. I believe that was a conversion of the school. It's a community center for artist workspace that offers rentals and workspaces and provides opportunities for classes in the community. Event space with improved theater and AV equipment to host conferences, meetings, and community events. I think Bill Scott has kind of been thinking along those lines as well. And co-working space for remote hybrid workers with adequate internet connection and resources to work.
Okay,
Question number 6, what opportunities are there to explore regional partnerships for economic development? Is there any action items in the Cape Cod Commission Cedc that we could utilize in Yarmouth?
Danielle?
I said that I think there's just a lot of our main things that we're saying are things that the whole Cape would say, right? Broadband and housing and even transportation was mentioned. All these things are, they're not Yarmouth problems, they're Cape Cod problems. And so we should be looking at grants together or bulk things together, like try and, there's no reason that each of us should individually be trying to redo each of these problems. And the only other thing I said was that we could be working with, the other towns to create some sort of passport program for people with like, you know, get a stamp at each of these different, like one beach at each town and you get a free ice cream or something, something that would encourage people to go to different places on Cape, not just the one little area they're in. And I hope that could be something we work with other towns with.
Yes. Pete,
I don't have much on that.
let's see, Joe Manning. Yarmouth has opportunities to explore regional partnerships with neighboring towns, educational institutions, and private sector entities. Cape Cod Commission comprehensive strategy includes action items like promoting ecotourism, regional transportation improvements. Additionally, lobbying for streamlined processes within the commission can support housing and infrastructure projects. And I would just add seasonal housing, so.
If I could just add a comment. I
Yes,
think
sir.
if you're gonna have a discussion with the Cape Cod Commission, you wanna make sure that you're plugged in terms of this Massachusetts broadband initiative.
Yeah,
Right? They've got a partnership with MBI. MBI is gonna be doling out all the federal money for broadband, right? So you wanna make sure that you're connected to the commission, that you're engaged in doing the things that they're trying to support. So if you wanna get some of that money, that broadband money to come to Yarmouth, those are the players that you're gonna be working with. All right, so maybe it's getting Steve Tupper and somebody from the commission, but you want to make sure that our commission folks are having this conversation with the staff over there. So the regional part, this relationship with the Cape Cod Commission is incredibly important because that's just one bucket of money.
Yep.
They're gonna have a huge role in distributing. Because the way so much federal money has been put to Western Massachusetts, the focus now is on the east and the southeast. And for us to get in on that, we need to be working with the commission to make sure that Yarmouth's needs are understood as part of this regional initiative. They're doing digital equity plans in other towns. I don't know if we need to be in that mix, but that's something that needs to be explored. But I think, quite frankly, if there's one thing that we can get out of our relationship with the commission, if it's getting to be a priority for broadband, I think that would be huge. So I definitely put that on the list.
We had a couple ideas of support year-round community activity and civic engagement, identify and support growing industries in the region, provide opportunities for organizations and entrepreneurs to pilot ideas, develop and connect students and workforce to educational and training opportunities. So number 7 is suggestions on action items the town can pursue over the next 5 to 10 plus years to reach any of the goals and objectives outlined in the vision plan. So it's kind of opening it up to whatever you guys are thinking with some of your ideas on other objectives in the vision plan.
Joe Manning suggested, updating zoning regulations to support economic growth, fostering partnerships and educational institutions to create a skilled workforce, investing in infrastructure projects like wastewater and broadband, promoting strengths as a tourist destination, things we've already said. Okay. Joe Gibbs? Sorry.
I mean, pretty much just everything we've discussed already.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say, essentially.
It's a communication. I think that we do a lot of things in this town that no one knows we do. And I would go even farther. I've said this before in this community. I legitimately would not know about a single event that Yarmouth does, except for being on this committee. And I think that's it's a shame because Yarmouth is doing so many things. You just mentioned a whole number of things that Yarmouth has done for seasonal housing, which would make people feel so much better, like Yarmouth was listening and doing something instead of them just being frustrated. Or the road closures or all these things that I just think and I don't know what that solution exactly is, but I think that having a focus on communicating to more members of the community would really help build goodwill and pride and all those things that we want people to have for their town.
Can I ask you, how would you like to find out about information? What's your best route to get information to you?
I'm not even, I don't even know. I was thinking about this because I follow the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce and Yarmouth Town and all those things on Facebook, and they never pop up. But so I was thinking, maybe even like we have, I think it's the Commerce Building, I'm not even sure, on Higgins Scroll and 28. That's, yeah, like even just a big, almost like a church sign outside of it, right? That has like the upcoming things or something, like some goodwill thing that's happening with the town.
Well, there's the electronic sign that's there that's
Yes.
supposed to. I find it difficult to read myself, but I thought that was just my old eyes, so.
Yeah, I find that a little difficult. And I also think that a lot of times it's not saying,
Important stuff.
yeah, like, but I don't know. I think some form of focus on communication could really help.
We do recently hire a communications director, and we do have, I'm surprised to hear about Facebook because we do post lots of media posts now, and it's been more recent since maybe a year or something where we've really had that, been focusing on doing that, as well as news items, news blasts on the town website. If you're signed up, you can get just all the important, interesting things, get a news item on the town website.
And I think that's a great one. I
Yeah.
think that's perfect.
Yeah, as Kathy said, we hired a communications director last year. This is a priority for us. If you win the lottery, invest in 2 newspapers. We used to have the Register and we used to have the Cape Cod Times covering things that we used to do. And we did for years. And that's been our biggest problem. The demise of local journalism
Yep.
has been a real killer
Yeah.
for us because it's very difficult for people to stay informed of anything. So I think what I would say is continued support and growth and expansion of our communications program. I think, given the demise of local journalism, I think is critical. If you have specific suggestions, I know if I want to know what's going on, I go to the Town of Yarmouth website, look at the calendar, what's going on, and then I'll check out Facebook page and Twitter, or other social media. But Facebook page is really where a lot of information comes out. And it's sad that it's like that. Now I think we got to do better at notifying people and getting alerts out to people. Right now it's sort of self-driven.
Yeah.
But we'll get better at that. But I think saying things along the line of the importance of supporting that, I think, is very, very important. And it's well received, because sometimes I feel like it's the selectmen just keep having this conversation amongst ourselves. And you wonder to what degree there's any real awareness or understanding of how serious a problem it is in the community. So maybe you want to be a producer and help us produce content for our YouTube channel,
Content.
right? Content, we need
Content.
content. We need to drive more
Content
content.
development.
Yeah.
I think some of the projects too that you first mentioned too, that, if somebody goes to site plan review for an interesting project that's happening, it's public. It's now something that somebody may catch reading and say, oh, that's, look what might happen at 28, or is this possible? Or this is great. I mean, it makes Yarmouth look more alive than waiting to find out, down the road it happened or didn't happen. I mean, people are thinking about it, even if it doesn't happen, I
Yeah.
think
if something comes before the planning board or site plan, it's possible.
Yeah, I've often thought that it would be a good thing if you took Route 28 and every time a regulatory committee, like the zoning board of appeals or the planning board or the conservation commission, made a decision and you pinpointed on Route 28, Does anybody know what, that we've got a major development that's going on here that was just approved? We've got another one over here that's a new mixed use. We've got one down by me at Bass River that's going to be a brand new gas station with apartments above. People don't know that. And it would be like a highlight. If you think nothing is going on Route 28, you're wrong.
Yeah.
There is a lot going on, and we don't even see it, Peter, at the planning board, because our interception of those things are rare. But the zoning board of appeals sees them, and certainly the building commissioner and the site plan review committee sees them.
Yeah.
So
Design review
just
season.
kind of getting
Yeah.
the temperature of, it's hot on 28, I think. There's a few things going on, and people don't know about it. People don't know that developers are looking at us. And it takes time. And you brought up Great Island, Mark. That was, and I saved those architectural drawings. It was just, and nothing can happen there because the developer can't get the capital stacking they need. They can't get, the approvals are there. It's been approved. But be that as it may, there was action on that kind of blighted site several years ago. And there are other actions going on that people just don't know about. It could be, the lights go on 28. I don't know how you do that. I don't know where we get the resources to do that, but wouldn't that be, maybe working through the chamber? The chamber knows a lot. Chamber has a lot of background information, and, maybe working with them through their contract with you guys, right? I mean, maybe we fashion some section of that contract for them to be our promoter of 28 and not just about tourism.
I would recommend, if you've got ideas, pitch them to the town administrator and to Lori Sullivan, our communications director. Just keep pitching ideas, pitching, really, because it's just, this is so important an area. And I'm glad to hear Joanne. I thought it was me that if I wanted to know what was going on, I usually put the zoning meetings on TV.
Oh, yeah.
to Find out what's happening.
Oh, yeah. That's the place to go.
The
Shy.
big projects, though, happen through the planning board, because you are pretty much the permit granting authority for all the optional overlay districts, which are the ones that have a lot of incentives, higher density, the mixed use opportunities. So we've been seeing a lot more
Yes,
activity
that's
with
true.
the road bylaw, as well as the VCOD review bylaw recently.
That's good to know.
More so in this past year than ever before.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So there are some big things out
So
there.
it's what, 3 or 4 of them before the design review,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, design review committee is very active as well, because they usually see it before it goes.
Someone told me it wasn't very active either.
Sucker.
Bad, not compared to the.
No.
See. Well, you signed up for it, so you're in. No backing out now.
Courtney actually did a great job. She kind of had gone through each of the different sections of the vision plan, like community character and design. So highlight and promote the town's history, hosting events that look back at Yarmouth's foundation and where we wanted to go in the future, preserve and maintain historic buildings and areas, town services, effective, timely and transparent communication with the community and easier access to information. Again, what we're talking about, emergencies, constructions, events. Climate resiliency and sustainability, EV charging stations in town, continued support for grant applications that focus on energy conservation and climate resiliency projects. We've had quite a few grants. Resiliency project presentation before the select board tonight. Economy, local, state and federal programs and grants that incentivize business growth and redevelopment. I think the reason we were able to get things like the Cavalier done is because we ponied up with some money.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
we have these incentives for housing, but we don't have incentives for commercial. So what can we do and how can we help to incentivize business redevelopment? Redevelopment of commercial corridors to grow our economy, improve aesthetics of commercial corridors and open space. Aesthetics is certainly something that the planning board has been talking about. As we have the sewering coming in, and we're going to be seeing more redevelopment. I think we need to look at our architectural and site design standards and the standards bylaw, become a little bit more uniform and a little clearer and less complicated. But working that out so that when people come and they are raising and replacing an entire site, we're getting it rebuilt the way we want. We don't want parking on the front. We want the parking to the side. We want the building to look a certain way. Family-friendly activities to brand the town as a premier vacation destination. I think we do pretty good with that myself,
Yeah.
but maybe getting the word out there a little bit more would be great. Connectivity and mobility, bus shelters for those who need to utilize the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority year-round and to get to and from work and school. I think that's the reason you're seeing a lot of the apartments on Route 28 also, is because that's where the transportation is. And it's very limited in Yarmouth. It's really just Route 28. It goes to the Stop and Shop
Yes, it's a
and to the
wave.
Shaw's, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then it continues.
And you can wave down the
Wave
bus.
down.
And you can,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's great.
and then there's the Dart too, where you can actually call up and get door-to-door
Senior,
service, but
yeah.
there, you know, it's not always as timely as you would like, but it is, can be very, very helpful to get to a, you know, medical appointments and things like that. Addition of sidewalks and bike lanes where applicable and appropriate. I think we've really heard that pretty clearly during the visioning plan. Recreation and entertainment, expanding year-round recreational options, more in the winter for people to do either outside or inside. And then entertainment for young people, looking at entertainment license and provisions. I guess I'm interested in hearing from young people as to what type of entertainments you would like to see. Because I hear that a lot and I'm like, well, what's lacking? What kind of thing would you like to see in Yarmouth?
And can we give you one example? This committee met and voted on, what's it?
Codstock?
Codstock, which was something brought up by the younger folks on our committee that basically would result in, a festival, a music festival down at, Smugglers Beach. At different points during the weekend, just to attract more things for the, you know, your age group, your age demographic, as an example. I guess it was pointed out that P-Town?
I think it's most towns.
Yes, do it, and we weren't doing that, and there's an awful lot involved with it, but it was something that, you know, if we can deal with the traffic issues and the parking issues and a lot of other issues, it's something that this age demographic would love to see. Oh, and as an example, there's across the street from Skipper's, there's a park there, and there's music, you know, there was last
Concerts
year.
on Monday night,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was- and that's for an older group, and that's very successful as
I
it
think
is.
live
too.
music in
Yeah,
general.
right.
Outdoor activities, live music.
Right.
If you look
Yeah.
what the Seaport does in Boston, it's the age group, you know,
Yeah.
some
Right.
outdoor stuff.
And I think, go ahead, Danielle, the youngest. Started out asking you.
I don't know, I think I'm in a unique position now with
Yeah, you're.
two under two,
Oh,
but,
yeah. That puts a damper on things, doesn't it?
I think that just anything where you have some, like, even just, so I lived in Hyannis before I moved to Yarmouth, and just even something like the 99 does weekly trivia, right? Like, just anything where there's something that you
Say that
can,
again, the 99 does weekly.
Yeah.
trivia?
and that's,
Restaurant,
that's where we're at, yes. Is that 99 has weekly.
could bring the
wish I knew.
Yeah.
Brother.
Go to the Sea Dog Brew Pub any
They
night of the
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
There's something going on
Yeah.
there every night of the week.
And so, yeah, I think just, more like anything where you can, yeah, go out, just
Games.
have, yeah, games, have a drink, like, it doesn't have to be this big event, I think. And I think it's actually become a way more since even in like me growing up on Cape, of like things staying open in the winter now.
Mm,
Like, there's so many more businesses open in the winter now than there used to be. And I think that's a huge help.
I think it is places like, and I can give you the two examples that I've been to recently. And so it's like Treehouse and Sandwich.
Yes.
And it's so low key and you can get a drink, but when you look around, it's picnic tables, it's families. We bring Yahtzee. I mean, and then,
Treehouse.
yeah, it's great. And, I mean, there's people there with their babies, there's people there with little ones. But then I went this weekend to, the Smith Family Beer Garden. And it was fantastic.
Where is that?
It's
On
on
Main
Main
Street.
Street in Hyannis, where the carousel used to be. And
It's
they have,
amazing.
games inside. They have a pool table. They had cornhole outside. There was live music going on. There's indoor dining and outdoor tables. And again, it was the range of ages. It blew me away because I had my 19-year-old daughter and her girlfriend all, you know, dressed up, but there were families and older people, younger people. It was fantastic.
Peter wants a beer garden as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also wonder at what point are there enough?
Too many beer gardens.
Because that beer garden, it's really funny
Like
because
the IPA.
I've talked to a bunch of people over the last 2, 3 days. And I was surprised. I thought I was like a latecomer going to the beer garden. But there's so many people who haven't even been yet. And so I wonder about market demand and saturation, that kind of thing.
I actually don't think that's gonna be an issue.
You don't?
Nope. I think that the more you have, it actually has created its own industry around it. Like
Yeah.
you're seeing more and more bridal bachelorette parties and stuff.
And there was
they
one?
go, yeah, they go and they rent vans or buses. Like they actually have tours now that just go hit all the breweries around Cape. 'Cause you have Knockabout, you have Devil's Purse, you have Cape
Right.
Cod Beer, you have Barnstable Brewing, Smith Family, but then there's Oak Bay is also on Main Street. Like there's so many in a small area that it's becoming its own
Thing.
thing that I actually think it would do very well.
Yeah.
Could I chime in for a second? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, it's good, really good discussion, and I think it dovetails to something I was gonna say earlier when we were talking about sort of the workforce. I mean, I think there's a couple elephants in the room, and I'm pretty sure you guys are probably aware of this, but I think um, access to year-round workforce was something that we heard from the business owners. So they were largely hospitality oriented, but they're sort of on the front lines of struggling with even getting the workforce that they need for the season. And then you've probably seen a lot of them close for the winter, and their business model is just dependent upon, getting enough revenue in the summer that they can close in the winter. So there's something here, and I don't have the answer, but I think it's an observation I just wanted to put out there, which is the more family-oriented establishments, the kind of examples you just ran through, we could, I think it's out of what we would do as a scope, but I think looking at kind of how or who they're hiring might be informative to get, because I think they're getting different employee groups. And I think it was something that Danielle said was kind of the, coming out of school age children and what's happening to, graduates, high school graduates coming out of high school in Cape Cod overall is a lot of them are leaving, and the hospitality industry can't capture them anymore. Like there was this change in the workforce that they were all describing. I think it was highlighted by COVID. It was probably happening before that, but they just can't capture that workforce group anymore. Those well-educated kids are jumping that whole hospitality industry for different types of work. And so that's creating a gap. And I think for some of these businesses that everyone's finding highly desirable, kind of focusing on the workforce for them is something that I didn't see it covered yet, because I think the workforce going for like green or blue jobs, I think makes sense because those are a little bit higher paying and they're going to be desirable jobs, but somehow not skipping that workforce that is necessary to make some of the hospitality stuff stay year round. That was something that we heard really loud and clear with the businesses that they are struggling, and if their business can't make it only in the summer, they may not locate, they may not come to establish a business if they can't make it in the winter. And then, not to belabor it, but there was something, I think it was in Courtney's comments about kind of year-round activity. And one of the business owners that we met with talked about, like, they might be able to stay open in the winter if they knew that residents were going to come and have a steady flow of business in the winter. And so trying to create, excitement or a program or incentivizing Yarmouth residents to frequent these places, during the winter and really patronize them so that they can support them. That was something that we heard, and I think it's something that we're, well, as Cape communities, I think are going to have to grapple with that a little bit in terms of how do you give those new businesses that everyone wants enough business in the winter time as well to make it last. So I just wanted to plug that in because I hadn't heard it really yet, and it came through the business interviews that we did.
I think one interesting comment that I heard during the business interviews was also from the bagel shop owner, where he says, I have my summer clientele and then I have my winter clientele. My winter clientele, they basically at the beginning of the summer say, I'll see you in the fall, because I'm not fighting with the tourists. I'm just going to stay home. So that he's managed to do well because he has his year-round people who come back after the season is over, when it's quieter and they enjoy it and they're not out of everything. And then they just let them have it for the summertime where all the tourists are coming in.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and I guess last thing she said, education and learning, a balancing working relationships with our regional education partners and increased availability and access to educational programs for all ages, continuing education classes that provide additional jobs and learning for the community. So question number 8, anything else you'd like to share or believe is a critical issue that has not yet been addressed?
No. Well, I'll read with Joe Manning. Enhance collaboration between the town elected officials and committees to ensure alignment and reduce unforced errors in implementing the long-term comprehensive plan. Creating a more transparent and inclusive process will build trust among stakeholders and facilitate smoother execution of development projects. Additionally, leveraging state level support from the Affordable Homes Act and the Mass Leads Act can provide the necessary resources.
And then Courtney had some other comments.
Keeping in mind diversity, equity, inclusion and justice and belonging when developing a plan for what we want our community to look like in the years ahead. Not just a diverse community, but one that has as many equitable opportunities as possible, provided intentionally and proactively.
Joe Gibbs?
Nothing else to add at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. You guys good?
And then what are the 3 key points you would like the town to take away from this interview?
I'll read Joe. Food rezoning and PPP, emphasize the importance of rezoning and public-private partnerships to drive housing-centric development and economic growth. Educational partnerships and strengthen ties with local educational institutions to develop a skilled vocational workforce that supports local diversification and collaborating and streamlining processes we talked about before.
Courtney just mentioned, John, is a great year-round community. We live, play, work, and learn, and we can only become better based on the opportunities available to those who live, play, work, and learn here. We have an opportunity to shape the future of our community today for tomorrow. So learning from our history can help us to shape our future and the new history.
And
Danielle?
It's just things we've already.
Discussed. Same thing. Mine were recognition from leadership elected and appointed that more focus needs to occur on economic development. Have the Board of Selectmen commit to a focus on economic development by hiring additional staff, internal or external, meaning the Chamber of Commerce, securing grants, completing existing studies, and streamlining the permitting process. And the third one was put a timetable in place to achieve those 2 items.
Can't thank you enough. Everyone
Yeah,
did an
thank you very
excellent job.
much.
It was a very robust conversation. I'm really glad that Mark
job.
was able to stay with us. It's good to get some
Hey.
insight
Thank
from the
you.
select board. Can't thank you enough. And Jeff, I guess I'll see you tomorrow at our bi-weekly meeting.
Yeah, we're
Yes,
gonna
I
go
look.
have the next meeting at your place. I love that place behind it.
It's just my house. It's not this great. Yeah, that sounds great, Kathy. And thank you all very much. It's very informative to get
Background.
this level of detail coming from you guys. It's really valuable, so appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing you too. How'd you hit him today?
Some good, some bad.
You
No?
Bass River or?
Yes, sir.
Bass
I'm
River?
gonna
Need a motion to adjourn?
They're not
Oh,
done.
we're not done yet.
We're done, but they're not done. Thank you so much. We
Thank
really,
you.
really
Thank you very-
appreciate all
Thank you.
the,
Good
all
seeing
the
you.
work and effort.
Thanks, Danielle. I didn't introduce my. Meet you.
You know, Joanne.
I would hope you know.
Committee member items, we skipped well, we didn't, we took committee reorganization, we'll probably deal with that the next time when we have
Yeah.
more people here. You're welcome to be.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Committee member items?
No.
I have one. Joe, if you have any committee member items?
Just one. And that was just Courtney, Karen and I got together the other day to keep working on the forms for the special events, and we're continuing to work on that, and hopefully we'll have even more information for the next meeting.
Excellent, thank you. So in that regard, special events, we've been kicking around the money that we have and what we expect to have. The question keeps coming up, is there a need for us to put aside 50 or an amount for the St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, or is the town picking that up? I know there was discussion at the annual meeting in the spring. It was 50,000 that was,
I think you want to probably have that in reserve. Yeah, but I think you should put that aside.
put
Put that, reserve that. Set that aside.
from the tourism. League. Okay, so the town is not committing the 50,000. That was,
I think we have money to provide the additional support.
Yeah, I had a brief conversation with the town administrator
okay,
in follow-up about the $50,000 that was budgeted at the annual town meeting
Mhm.
and whether it's just for the St. Patrick's Day Parade, or maybe we can talk about collaborating, and could that money be available for things like details across the board for the different events? So,
That, we set aside a bucket of money.
Right.
The bucket that you're
Right.
talking about
Right.
to basically pay for the added detail costs
okay,
for special events.
all right, that's,
So what we want to do is have a bucket of money so that when we do
Okay.
the
That's clear.
St. Patty's Day, they're not entirely reliant on your help. to
for
make it
public
close.
safety,
Right, so
Perfect.
we should be
Okay.
able to cover a chunk of that.
okay,
Seaside Festival,
yes, same,
all
thing.
right, we want to basically, what we don't want to do is overburden.
right,
Everyone should be expected to cover a certain amount of traffic details and coverage,
Understood.
but we all know that on the larger events that get a lot more traffic,
right,
there are gonna be costs that go above and beyond the expected contribution, so
okay,
we wanted to have this fund. I think we're gonna do a better job of explaining it at the next town meeting. And there needs to be some more clarity on that.
I
well,
think
that's,
as we go forward with the special event announcements and process, we'll need to collaborate with the town administrator's office.
So the parade committee would still come back before us, like they have.
Oh, they should,
Yes.
they should, definitely,
Yeah.
they should come make an application. What, as Karen was saying, is there needs to be an understanding when it comes to you, what the costs might be in terms of those additional costs that can be covered by that fund.
Okay.
You want to make sure that when there's some degree of screening and interaction that goes on.
right, and that was a big thing with those, you pointed out Seaside Inn, that the big expenses of the whole
Yeah.
pot of money.
Yeah, we don't
was-
want to be using all
So-
that money for just
Exactly.
2 events,
Right.
because the detail costs and the security costs, we get it. There needs to be an
Yeah,
added presence. We're in a different environment. We have active shooters,
That-
requirements and other public safety requirements, right? We want to basically be adequately prepared for those problem.
That clears it up.
Right,
That clears it
so
up.
that's what
Right.
that bucket of money is for. Now, typically on the smaller stuff that's being financed, they won't necessarily have.
It's not a big thing.
The whole thing is they probably don't
It's
need
not.
it, right?
No.
But on some things, the big events that draw thousands and thousands and thousands of people to the town, you know what? Guess what? Those have costs that go above and beyond what we could
Yeah,
expect.
I guess,
The tourism fund, and again, it's tourism
Right.
promotion fund, right?
right.
So some of that detail work, there's nothing for tourism promotion. It's all public safety support.
Exactly. And your point of wanting to focus in on some of the historical aspects of the community is well received. We could do something now that we know that we don't have to have
Yeah.
so much money allocated for
Good.
public safety, so.
Yeah, in the historic stuff, it's not, what we need to do is be clear. There are multiple of smaller things. It's almost like very foundational.
Mhm.
There's been so much work done in this town, just mining history. All
Well-
right, now it's a question of interpreting it and creating an awareness of it. My hope is that in a master plan that we can develop, or the outlines of it, we can have funds for the signage. We can maybe do some computer or some apps for your phone where you can have historic Yarmouth app, right? Where you can do self-guided tours.
Yeah.
And maybe a venue where you can get yourself oriented, like whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or the Historical Society, and the Historical Commission have put dibs on the old South Yarmouth Library, so that if there is a new library someplace,
They get that place.
they could make that a sort of a centerpiece
Yeah,
for interpreting, almost a destination place where people can go and learn about the history, where they could have paintings, talks, they can have historical archives.
right.
So for the junkies that are into the Yarmouth history, there's a place for them to go and a center of activity. And it kind of fits in a little bit with the arts. I mean, that cultural center, you talk about interesting stuff.
That's-
I mean,
that's a beautiful place.
you know, I'd love to talk to them. I mean, Joe Manning does a lot of work with them. It's like, what can we do to grow that?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, no, it's,
Yeah, so I was very intrigued with your comments about businesses doing interesting stuff. Because you know what, there are so many interesting businesses. I can't tell you how many times I get invited to go to a place for a beer or a cup of coffee where there's a nice vibe there, you know, it's just a place you want to go and check it out. And so the question is what can we be doing to maybe generate some of the activity, that
Mhm.
activity here? Are we being excluded for some reason? I think part of it has to do with the lack of a downtown. That's
I
why,
agree.
you know what I mean? It's like a place, because isn't it nice to be able to go to like Chatham or some other place,
Right.
park your car,
Howard.
and then, right, Harwichport. Harwichport has really changed. I mean, I remember when that downtown was dead.
Yeah.
But that place is buzzing
Yeah.
right now. There's a lot, there's a vibe down there that, you know, is
And a,
relatively new,
and a beer garden,
huh?
and a beer. garden.
So you know what yeah, I think our challenge is gonna be where can you do that? That's why I keep talking about Great Island, because it's the closest place where you could go to park your car somewhere and then walk in an area. Cause that's part of what you need to do.
Yeah.
I know we're getting astray.
no, that's
so
all right, we're good. We,
We continued.
staff updates, we're good.
I'm
think we got
good.
them
I
all.
think we,
Our Route 28 assignment for the, is that, are we individually, we're doing
Yeah.
those alone,
you're gonna
right?
do that. I have to send out the
Okay.
like data collection and I was
Right.
gonna try to get you all the addresses just to make the information collection a little bit easier.
And are we doing that for next week? Or
No.
for September.
No,
Okay,
that'll be for September.
great.
So these are our next meetings, 20th of August, 21st, and September 10th. Good,
So both the 20th and the 21st are both at 5.
Yes, well, I think that we didn't decide on the August 20th,
yeah, you don't have
but
that down.
5 would be.
Yeah.
The planning board you always start at 5, right, Peter?
Because I just had 5:30 written.
5:30 for.
That's 5:30, thank you.
But I think, we're 5.
We're,
We
yeah,
are all usually at 5. I know sometimes people prefer 4,
Mhm.
but I'm just gonna,
so the 21st is 5:30.
21st is 5:30. And the 20th,
Make it a 5.
I had, 5 o'clock. Let's say 5.
Great.
I'll fix my room reservation so someone else can use it.
Okay, good. With that, motion to adjourn,
Make a motion to adjourn.
second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Joe, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Joe.
Mark, thank you for attending. Always welcome.
No, this is great. I enjoy I want to let you know, I mean, we're always interested in the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And, what's nice to know is that many of these, there's so much similarity in terms of your discussions and select board discussions, and you hear when you listen to the planning board, you know.